So, obviously you've worked a lot in Nunavut, but you've also had experiences in other provinces, Manitoba, as well as your current home, Nova Scotia. So I'm just curious to know if there's any lessons that you think could be learned here in New Brunswick, from the successes in other provinces. I think it's important to learn from everywhere possible, other jurisdictions, to see what they're doing. Do you have any words of wisdom from your experiences in other provinces? And remember, this is only, we only go till 10, so.
Well, the word that comes to mind, Tony, is blueberries. And I think I'll have to explain that. In Nova Scotia, there was a period of time back when there was interest. There were people wanting to make films. There were people like Bill McGilvery who were actually making their own films. They were doing it on a shoestring, on a bit of a wing and a prayer, and wanted to try to kind of come together as an industry, but the film was not recognized as such, like by the government. The Nova Scotia government didn't really exist on their radar. At the premier, Rowley, everyone called him Rowley Thornhill, was at that time of having a meeting, and from what I understand, this is a story that sort of circulated around, but I know some of the people who were at the meeting. In any case, people kept mentioning film, what Rowley referred to as the film business. And they keep saying, well, there's film, and there's this film going on, and that film going on. And in one of these meetings, he said, what's all this talk about film and the film business? He said, is it a business? He said, I thought, people, kind of ponce around wearing berets and carrying baguettes under their arms, and, they talk in cafes, from what I understand, stay up really late at night, and, maybe smoke things they shouldn't, and, I get all that part, but is it a business? Is it a business? And one of his aides said, well, sir, it's bigger than blueberries. And in Nova Scotia, I don't know what blueberries are doing here, in Nova Scotia, at that particular time, blueberries were an industry segment that reliably rolled in somewhere between $30 and $40 million a year. So when Roland Thornhill heard that the actual total amount of film activity, which was a little bit here and a little bit there, that it actually had crested and had gone just a little over blueberries, he said, bullshit. Excuse me. That was what he said. And he said, prove it. He said, go get all your numbers together. You come back and show me that this film stuff is bigger than blueberries. And he said, I'm going to jump in. And I'm gonna really, I'll really take it seriously if you can prove that. And I guess they went and they did the numbers and everything. They came back and they showed him. He said, all right, well, what do we need? What do we need to make this thing grow? This is an industry. It's not all the poncing around that he had previously thought it was. It's a real thing. And I'd say that that's part of the secret to what happened in Nova Scotia, was that there was this one individual who said, if you can show me that this is an industry, we're going to treat it like an industry. And I think that if you look across Canada, not to single New Brunswick out at all, if you look across Canada, each jurisdiction has a different, they have complicated relationships to film. I mean, even our own Prime Minister had some very select choice quotes about filmmakers, and what was it that all we do is we hang around late at night at parties discussing the grants we didn't get, or whatever it was, some infamous quote, whatever it was. But in any case, so that kind of indicates from the top down that there's an uneasy relationship between government and film. How to understand it, how to quantify it. One of the best things that we can do as an industry is to make sure that our efforts are quantified, because without a kind of a baseline study of what it was like before, and then let's say, just take for one example something like Copperhead, a feature film comes in, and if there's a kind of a study of like, here's where we were before, this came in, this is the amount of money that went to this is how tourism was helped, this is how, so forth. And then the peak powers that be, I see Sandra Jameson's here, and has just nodded as well, recognizing that there's not much you can do without those kind of baseline studies. Otherwise, it's hearsay, right? So those kind of things really started to happen. And then, of course, that they be applied with some consistency, that, you know, hopefully you go forward. The one word other than blueberries that I would have to say as a kind of a key word for your question, Tony, would be that passion, I guess it would be dedication, passion, that a government would get it and would get behind it and would believe in it and would push it, because you're not going to build, Nova Scotia admittedly is a success story, right? New Brunswick, I hope, is on its way to being another very different but, you know, parallel success story to the Nova Scotia story. In Nova Scotia has just surpassed Montreal to become the third largest film center in Canada. How did we do that? That's amazing. It's amazing. Nova Scotia is a tiny province, you know, it's a little tiny thing. But what we've been doing is consistently punching way above our weight over there. And it's not fits and starts. It's not like it's a little bit supported this year and then suddenly it's not supported next year. It's the consistency of it, year end over year end over year end. How can this become a career? How can this become something that young people and not so young people can look at this and say, I want to spend my life doing this.